I've been an artist and doing healing for pretty much all my adult life. And I started out, I've done many different things, but I'm a sculptor and work in all mediums of metal, glass, stone, wood. And I made stained glass windows in my 20s professionally for years, and that's where I got hooked on color. And then through my healing work, I ended up in doing energy work. And I conceived the idea of using and got fascinated with color for doing healing work and started making prisms. So I had to do a lot of research to end up with the prism that I did, because originally I was going to use solid glass, and it would be impossible to make a prism that size, the size that I want, out of solid glass unless you're Corning or something. So I found out that I could make water prisms, and the Egyptians used water prisms, and it's made like an aquarium. And so I epoxied the three sides together using low iron glass, and ended up making my prism, which is, we'll have a picture of it, which is 8 feet long and 16 inches on the side, and it's set on a stainless steel base.
Did you send Ken a picture of it?
Yes.
Okay, Ken, when you can, just pull it up.
So from that point, I conceived, well, there it is. There's one of them.
Wow.
So, yeah, when it's, I'm going to use mineral oil. I used water to fill it with first when I was working on them. There, that's a long bed pickup. So that turns horizontally on its axis, and it's set on casters, so I can move it back and forth to focus in on the sun.
Does the prism spin itself, or is it just?
Yes. Yeah, you see, that's you can't see it very well, but that's a bearing. That's it's what's called. It's an old school bearing. It's called a Babbitt bearing, and it works on a pipe within a pipe. And so when that's all finished and filled, the prism's going to weigh about 800 pounds, and the base is going to weigh about the same, maybe a little less. Don't know exactly for sure. So the overall project that I'm working on is an energetic resonant healing space that combines sacred geometry, color from the sun, and frequencies with electromagnetism and scalar waves as a carrying wave. And I'm combining those three things to create an energetic space that I can enter frequencies into the space for any particular combination, in particular or combinations of frequencies for any particular problem going on in the human body. And it acts through the body electric and what's called piezoelectricity or magnetism. And our bodies, our bones are creating, has its own energetic field. And so our body electric automatically wants to harmonize and resonate with any energetic field it comes into. And that's why AC electricity is not good for us, because our body does it automatically. So when a person gets inside the sacred geometric three-dimensional shape, then I input the frequencies into that shape for whatever the particular problem is. And so the basic theory of resonant healing is that I use the analogy of a bad heart has one frequency, a good heart has a different frequency. So you enter those frequencies into that copper geometric shape, and that creates an electric environment that has a biocompatible carrying wave that our bodies will resonate and harmonize with, and the ultimate state of that is called entrainment. And when you reach entrainment, then if you could see it on an oscilloscope, then the input frequency and your frequency would be traveling exactly the same.
Do you actually use a oscilloscope when you're doing your work?
I don't have one, but I've used one before. But that's going to be part of the end product. After I get the project finished, then getting the science done is my first order of business. And I made this to be mobile so I can go to wherever the testing equipment is, and the people with all the letters and stuff behind their name, which I don't
The
have any.
alphabet soup.
Yeah, which I don't have any of. So
I hear that one. So this is part one, and then I assume your geodesic dome is part two. And then what is the part three that you mentioned?
it'll be an electronic frequency generator and some kind of MP3 player or some recording device that I can input any natural or recorded sounds in. So it could be singing bowls or sacred music of any kind, or anything like that.
Gotcha. So chanting or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, reeling it back up, when I first met you, I met you out in Hawaii. I was with Pauline on one of her healing journeys out there. I remember like your daughter introduced us because she got the connection to me in soil and energy. And I was blown away by the project that you were working on back then. That was the geodesic dome component of it.
A copper dodecahedron.
Yeah. Is that still the same unit you're using, or did you build another one?
No, that's the same one. The ancients called the dodecahedron the shape of the divine in sacred geometry. And all of the sacred geometric shapes will take in energy, amplify it, and then project it to the very center. But the dodecahedron has particular other qualities that make it even more valuable.
Can you pull up a dodecahedron, Ken, when you get a chance, and also pull up Buckminster Fuller's geodesic dome, because there's a lot of unity or synchronicities to these.
Yeah, well, a dodecahedron is a very simple geodesic shape in a broad sense of the word.
So back then you were at, like, I think, kind of the beginnings of this journey, this latest journey in your life. And
yeah, well, that was the dodecahedron was the first thing that I made. I had made some water prisms first, but nothing like this. They were set vertically, and I filled them with water. But see, these are all the geodesic shapes. There are a lot more complex. The dodecahedron has all identical pentagons, and there's 20 of them. Excuse me, in the complete three-dimensional spherical shape.
so that's, again, it's more, you're using pentagrams versus triangles, which Bucky did. So it's similar.
Well, you could break it down into triangles, but yeah, pentagons.
Yep.
5-sided. But the hubs, all the vertices have three shapes. Yeah, that's me sitting inside it right there. It's hard to see because of the light, but
Still very cool. Great way to give people the scale that you were showing me when I first saw it.
Yeah, it's 8 foot in diameter.
And now you were talking at that point about hanging crystals in the corners, but it sounds like you've gone farther down or deeper down the path.
Well, I did that. I I got quartz crystals from Mount Ida, Arkansas, some of the finest quartz in the world, wrapped them in copper wire, and then wired them into every hub or the vertices where the three sides come together. And that adds another dimension of resonance to it, because quartz crystals are piezoelectric, and that means that they have their own built-in battery. So they're putting out frequencies all the time. And it's that piezoelectric aspect of quartz that makes computers possible, because the chips are made from quartz, and when you input the information into them, then when you turn the computer off, it's that built-in battery that makes the information retrievable. If it wasn't piezoelectric, then when you turn the computer off, all the information would be gone.
So are you storing the person's energy inside, or are you projecting?
No. The whole purpose of all of this is to create a unique and energetic environment that sets the stage for the body to heal itself.
Gotcha.
And so, using the analogy of the bad heart, when that frequency of a healthy heart gets input into that grid, and the person with the bad heart is sitting inside there, and all that energy is around them three-dimensionally and being projected to the center, then when they reach a state of entrainment, our body in its infinite wisdom will automatically recognize that and revert back to that. And when you reach entrainment, then it will start cleansing and healing itself automatically. That's the theory.
Well, I tend to think that there's a lot more to it than theory, but I understand your need to say that.
Yeah. But my own experience with doing energy work tells me that it will work. And it's very interesting, because even without anything, just the shape itself, it's been very interesting to see people get into it and sit. And there's one young man in particular in Hawaii, and he's very loud and real hyper in his attitude and his movements and everything. And every time he'd be talking on the phone, as an example, he'd get in the dodecahedron. As soon as he got in there, his voice would calm down. He would calm down. His whole demeanor changed. And anybody that's sensitive to energy can feel that.
Well, I remember just touching it, and I could feel that there was some kind of generation going on. Couldn't put my finger on it, but I'm very impressed with just the way you had crafted it at that point in time.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the prism. So you are collecting the sun and beaming it into the center of the.
Well, it'll be. Ken, if you could pull up that, you had it up there earlier, that picture of me holding the round color band. That picture right there, that color band is produced by a prism that is about 6 inches tall and 1.5 inches wide. And so, doing the math, I figure using the proportions of that, then the color band from the giant prism should be at least 50 feet long and 20 feet high or larger. The further away you get, then it gets bigger, and it will have that intensity or greater. And so it's no matter what, the smallest that the color band I would aim at the person sitting inside the dodecahedron would be, the minimum would be 8 feet long and 16 inches wide.
Well, that's no joke. That's a big rainbow, a big energy beam.
Yeah.
So you said you're going to take it on the road to go begin testing. Now, I remember you telling me excitedly that you were going to participate in an event. Have you formally acknowledged that, or is it something that you're still in the wings about?
Participate what? Sorry.
At a upcoming event next year.
Oh, Burning Man.
Shit. No joke, people.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that. How you got involved with them and where it went.
Well, my daughter Amber, who is working with me on this project, went to Burning Man for the first time a year ago, and she came back just on fire. And she said, "Dad, we've got to get a grant to have you take your prism there." And so we worked really hard, and we got approved for a major grant, but had to turn it down because I had a shoulder injury in between, and so I couldn't produce the full installation. So we turned it down. We're going to try again next year.
I actually think that in many ways that was again universal energy, because I don't think that you would have had the best of opportunities last year or this past season just due to
No.
Shit show. So,
No, but it's amazing when people see that color band, even through the small prisms I had, it draws people like a magnet. But our body, I mean, it's in our DNA, color and rainbows and stuff. Our DNA communicates with scalar waves, electromagnetism, and light. That's how it communicates.
yeah, and light's a very interesting one. It's both a wave and a particle, so it has very, very powerful.
Yeah, well, and the energetic part of that for me in my project is that if you ask any physicist, they'll tell you that the sunlight is made up of two elements. One is just the physical frequency of the light, just the color itself, physical color. But it also travels with the electromagnetic frequency of the color. And those two items are separate but inseparable in the light. And so that electromagnetism, the dodecahedron will take that in, plus it will be shining on the person. So it will have a combination effect, and then our bodies will react to the piezoelectricity of the color through the electromagnetic frequency. But the physical color itself only goes a few nanometers into our skin, but just the color itself through that and visually has tremendous healing effects without it. But I don't know any other color therapist that I have ever met or heard of that uses sunlight for their work. Everybody uses incandescent bulbs or LEDs or gels or something. And so to me, they're missing the most important part, because with the electromagnetism, our bones are piezoelectric, our muscles are piezoelectric. And so our whole body will resonate from the outside in and the inside out, both at the same time.
That's what I'm talking about. And yeah, I know of color healing through Pauline. She was doing a lot of different treatments after getting the cancer diagnosis, and that was one of them, was different lights that would flash when she was meditating on her PMF mat. Mm-hmm. And she would come back with be in a really wonderful mood and a happy place, even though she was deeply suffering inside.
Yeah.
So there's some truth to that, and that again is like the difference between growing cannabis outdoors versus growing cannabis under lights. There definitely is a difference, and it haven't really been quantified yet, but I'm sure that as things progress, that sooner or later somebody's going to test a cultivar side by side and really try to define.
Well, that's one of the many things that I want to get vetted out with the science when I get testing done.
Yeah, and what was interesting, a couple years back, I read an article about the fact that far red from the sun can actually penetrate up to 8 feet, I think it was, maybe it's 10 feet into the soil. And that was something that was not considered possible because of the matrix of soil itself is, denies light penetration. So I can only imagine how powerful that combination of the unit itself, and then you add that sunlit prism rainbow on you as well, the dodecahedron. So what a unique combination. Now, I have to ask, how did you link those two together, or were they always in the back of your head as two key components?
No, it's just it was a gift. You know, it came to me through the process of working on the project, and so that's the nature of creative process. You get in the flow, and things come.
Yep. As a creative mind, I totally get that. It's like even if you're not a great surfer, you climb on this board, and if everything is clicking, you just react or respond, not react, respond to the environment, and
Yeah,
all these wonderful things come to fruition.
yeah. And the color band is really interesting because you're breaking the light down into its visible component parts. And that picture of me holding that round color band really changed my life because it was for the first time it gave me a visual image of what I am trying to do. And also it taught me numerous things about the light. And one of them that was the biggest thing was that I kept looking at that picture and I couldn't figure out what it was. It just was off somehow in my head. And I finally figured it out, and that is that when I looked at the color band, you could see the outline of my thumb and different things, but there were no shadows, just the absence of color.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah, and I was that that totally amazed me.
Um, so how is that even possible that you're not going to get any shadow in the surrounding part of it?
It's just all I could figure out is when you break the light down to its basic elements, then those basic elements have different qualities than the totality of the entire white light spectrum
So back,
together.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said just all that stuff together has a different effect than the individual parts. As Buckminster Fuller said, the sum of the parts is greater than the total is greater than the sum of the parts. I'm sorry, I had it
Yep,
backward.
correct. Oh boy, I mean, I'm split into two directions right now. One of them is sun gazing. Have you ever heard of sun gazing?
Oh yeah,
I've brought it up on the show that one recently, that it's something that I really enjoy doing in the late afternoon and sometimes early morning as well. And it's interesting because when you gaze, you get this like almost blue light that blocks the center of the sun, and so you're getting the intensity rays, but the center is blocked, kind of like the opposite of an eyeball. And you definitely can feel, if you're paying attention to your body and you're well connected, you can definitely feel the effects of it. I laughed, kind of to myself and say, "Oh, come on, protons, bring it on, bring it on." And the
mhm,
interesting thing was that the guest at that point, we were talking about, said, "Well, it kind of makes sense because your eye is black that it would absorb the most amount of light." And so that was like, all right, aha. So when you see these new super black materials, which I'm sure you're well aware of, that just absorb all light, um, that was like a pretty incredible feat that was created. And I don't know if that makes sense in your world to try to use some of those absolute black colors to help absorb more energy. Would that make sense? I mean, I'm just kind of freewheeling here. You know the black material I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it could, but that's a whole different direction than what I'm going. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it wouldn't work. But the effect would be totally different. I would think. Like I said, I'm freewheeling too.
Well, that's what I said to you like on Sunday. I'm like, hey, don't worry. This is like really relaxed. It's not a crazy interrogation type of podcast. We just kind of talk and wheel and see where things go. So back to the other direction is when you initially got that beam to project on you. You said you were using it was like 1 foot tall, or what was it, 3x1?
Oh, in the picture,
Yeah.
7 inches tall, and about 1.5 inches on each side.
And there were 3 sides to it.
Yes.
And then how did you? Because it was a prism, or was it a pyramid?
It was a prism, a vertical prism.
Okay. So you were able to just twist it until you got the light to focus on you. Because you have to use one flat side as the collector, and then it beams it into the points, into the tip, correct?
Yeah. Well, and to achieve that, I used a mirror because the sun was very low on the horizon in the morning, and it was taken on Christmas Day, so we were very, very close to the solstice.
I was going to say, wow, that's cool.
And so the angle of deflection is what it's called, and it's a law that whatever the angle is of the sun coming into the prism is the same angle that it exits the prism. So it's if the angle is real low, then the color band's going to be very low too. So I put a mirror on the ground, and then it hit that and reflected up, and then I adjusted my body position to get the color band about right where I wanted it. But if you go, the further away you go, then it's called dispersion, then the color band gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And probably not as vivid, right?
Yeah.
So
No artist has, at least in modern time, has ever had a prism this large to work with, ever. Then one of the next things I want to do is make the largest prism in the world, but I haven't been able to find out what that is. AI couldn't find what that is, and nobody that I have talked to, people that are way, way better at doing research than I am, nobody can come up with what the largest prism in the world is.
That's interesting.
So if anybody out there is listening and you can tell me that, I would love to know.
Did you look in Guinness World Book of Records?
I would think that information, no, I didn't, but
Ken, just for goose and giggles, if you can, Google it. Chase down the Guinness World Book of Records and see if there's a prism in there. That might be fun to see.
I don't think there is. But yeah, prisms are fascinating. But one of the things that the visible color spectrum is just what our apparatus of our body sees.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's just a drop in the bucket on the electromagnetic spectrum.
And I would tend to agree with you that we have a lot more to learn about.
Oh, yeah. One of the things, that I read this very interesting book some years ago, a friend of mine loaned me, and that's where I first ran across the concept that insects, a lot of insects see in infrared. And so a lot of insects cannot metabolize sugar. So when they fly over a field and they look down, if the plant's healthy, then it'll have a lot of sugar in the leaves and in it generally. And so when they see that frequency, they just fly on by because they know it would kill them, just instinctually.
And that has always been such a big argument specifically in the cannabis community, that less so with some of the plant pathologists and some of the other science and wings, but I've always had an understanding that there had to be a connection between bricks and specifically insect infestations. Like, we know, like, if the plant's really sick, it's going to attract these insects, and we do understand that insects are the great recycler. They're there to remove something that is unhealthy for the consumption by other animals up the food chain. So there had to have been a correlation, but again, it's been one of those things that everybody argues about and says, "Oh, that's BS." That the insects can't see that, so they can't smell that, and another argument was radar, like they're pinging it, and I'm like, that doesn't jive with me. It has to be something like what you're talking about, where they're seeing in a different spectrum that we can't see in.
Yep.
What do you got here, buddy?
Oh, is that the article that says that the largest prism in the world was going to Africa and like 19...
No, this is Harvard College Observatory. July 22nd, the largest single prism in the world, 33 inches in diameter and weighing 300 pounds.
Yeah.
You get that beat.
Yeah, I saw that, and so that's not very big, because if it's 33 inches in diameter, glass weighs 200 pounds a cubic foot.
Yep.
And my prism is 8 feet long and 16 inches on each side.
Significant difference.
Yeah.
You know what? And before we go too far deeper, the glass that you used, I had a buddy that was very into he was a glass similar to you. He was more of an artist. He did just a lot of like mirrors and glass countertops and some crazy installations too. But he went down the rabbit hole of this glass they call Starfire. Have you ever heard of that?
That's what I use. That's just a trade name. It's a low iron glass.
Okay.
And if you ever look at plate glass on edge, and especially if it's stacked up, it has a green tint to it. That green is caused by iron. It's the most common contaminant of silica. And the Coke bottles, that green color in Coke bottles, that's where that comes from, is the iron contamination. So Starfire glass, it goes by a few different names, but it's all low iron glass. And when you look at on the side, like and with regular plate glass has that green color, well, the low iron glass has a light blue color, and it's much more optically transparent, and it doesn't block out UV rays, and so it works. And it's more expensive, but it works much better for what I'm doing.
Yeah,
because of the optical transparency.
I would tend to believe that. And
ultimately, then I would love to get high lead glass, because that is true optical quality glass. No other stuff in there, but there's nobody commercially making that, and you would have to pour it, and it's a whole different thing.
Is that what they use for the telescopes? Is the lead glass?
No, probably they would use borosilica glass for that.
Okay.
And that's optical quality glass, and it also has it's much stronger than regular glass, and it doesn't affect temperature change. It's much more stable than that. So that's what like Corningware stuff is all made out of that. Pyrex, as an example, is a borosilica glass.
Interesting. Didn't expect to go down the glass rabbit hole with you, but why not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw that question. Yeah, glass from lighthouses would work. Uh, but there again, that's optical quality glass and and extremely expensive. But they've come so far in the design of those units. I mean, the new ones look nothing like the old ones, and they're so much more effective.
The lighthouses. This. Are you talking the glass in the lighthouse?
Yeah, yeah, the glass itself.
And that would be the where the light shines through, not the actual reflector, the light source.
No, the light source is different, but just the lens, if you will.
Yep. All right. So now we've talked about the glass on the outside. What is the material inside? Are you using argon or
Mineral oil,
so it's full of oil?
it will be.
Wow, that's going to add some weight to it.
Yeah, but it doesn't weigh as much as water.
Right. Right. But water would probably just be a problem because it would just algae up on the inside,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's problematic. I used water to begin with, but it was a vertical prism and it was open top. And so if I need to clean it, I can just pour it out, clean it, and refill it. But
Gotcha.
this one is sealed up and it's horizontal. So, but there's also mineral oil is I've got so many questions, and one of the things that's I'm going to be looking into is mineral oil is one of the best insulators out there. Transformers are filled with mineral oil. And what happens is the mineral oil, they dump electricity in there, and the mineral oil keeps, it's like if it has two poles, right? It keeps the electricity from connecting. So it gathers the electricity within the mineral oil.
Wow.
And yeah, and I don't know how that's going to affect the color band or if you could even electrify it physically and change or enhance the color band. I have no idea.
Sounds like some fun experiments coming your way.
Yeah, yeah, there's plenty of things I want to experiment with.
All right, so back to the three pieces. We've talked about the prism, we've talked about the glass, the oil inside. We've talked about the dodecahedron. We've touched on use of sound, whether it be like you said, singing bowls or chanting. How are you projecting that sound? Is it being projected inside the dome or from outside?
Inside, but you won't hear anything. But the frequencies will be there, and they will have a carrying wave that is electromagnetic that makes that biocompatible with our body electric so that you can reach the state of entrainment.
Okay, so you're talking about vibration.
No, this gets into the physics.
Okay.
And I mean, just like the light has a frequency, an electromagnetic frequency of the color, then it also, but you have the physical frequency of just the color, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing is just like with the prism, breaking it down into its basic parts with light. I'm doing kind of the same thing with sound because I am just taking the frequency of the sound without the physical aspect of the sound.
So kind of like a radio wave?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, a radio wave is a different frequency on the electromagnetic spectrum. But yes, you know, the short answer is yes. I'm just taking like the vibratory, the electrical vibratory part of the sound without the physical attached to it.
So how are you projecting that? Is it through some kind of like capacitor, or because you're not using a speaker, obviously.
No, through a biotransducer and an amplifier, high frequency range. And then I want to wire up the dodecahedron like a speaker.
So the dodecahedron becomes the actual vessel, the vehicle for the sound, for the other half. It's not going to make any noise, but in theory,
yes. Whoops.
Oh, you're still there, John. You're still there. Keep going.
Can you see my my pointer on there?
Yeah.
Nope.
Was that you, or was that him?
This is me right here.
Okay.
Right.
Oh,
yeah,
there.
You can't see your.
Yeah.
Do you
Okay.
see his pointer?
Yep. That's all right. Yeah, the one you pointed, that's a dodecahedron. It's all identical pentagons. No, the one next to it. 5 sides. There, that. Up. Go back. The 2 on the left-hand side.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Go up 1. Oh, there you go. That's good.
That's a dodecahedron. And then the big one over on the right is a dodecahedron. Same thing. Yeah.
So when you wire that, is it 2 wire or is it like 80 wire?
No, I think it will be 2. I mean, nobody's done it, so that's something but I've always imagined it as a 2-wire system, a positive and negative.
Okay.
Just like a speaker.
Okay.
And then the amplifier will, lenses is lining. I lost it, but the dodecahedron does the job. It's a natural. It takes in energy, ambient energy, amplifies it naturally, and projects it to the very center. And people don't understand the power of sacred geometric shapes, and because it's just the geometry.
I know. He's all excited. I know.
The
star of the show,
Oh, yeah. The geometry interacts with electromagnetism. And I first learned about that with the prism, because with the prism, if you shine light in it one way, it amplifies the color band. If you shine it in from the opposite side, it diminishes the color band. And that's just the geometry. So all the sacred geometric shapes have a different effect on electromagnetism.
And we've seen that over and over again in kinetic experiments, where you're using vibration to create the sacred geometry shapes, and each frequency creates a different type of pattern or group of interacting lines and angles. So have you ever heard of the Targaryens? It's kind of a myth at this point in time.
Say the name again.
Targaryens, not like the game. Was it Game of Thrones? It's not that. It's another group that. So the Great Wall of China, everybody thinks that was built by China, but if you look at the design carefully, the defenses of that wall are pointed at China. So whoever built that wall was trying to defend against Chinese invasion. And in theory, supposedly, this group called the Targaryens, and I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, were the ones that built that and they had an advanced civilization that had free energy, and a lot of the symbolism for that free energy came through in some of the earlier churches, where as a guy that did stained glass, you understand like the intricacy. They would always use sacred geometry as the vessel to put in their colored glasses and put in their imagery, whatever that was. But between that focusing the light into the church and the bells that rang, were creating these very healing environments for people to celebrate. You know, I hesitate to use the word worship, because I think that there was more to it, you know, especially back in the early days of Christianity. But it is thought, or is believed amongst the conspiracy theorists, that this group, the Targaryens, had all of this stuff figured out, and that a lot of the stuff that the Catholic Church then created after its formation and thereon was basically exactly those components that they had created that allowed them, or their civilization, to advance to the point that they did, in both creating, you know, the Great Wall of China and many other pretty amazing archaeological feats for the time it was. You know, this was back in before the Dark Ages, man. We're talking, you know, thousands of years ago. And another thing that kind of would indicate that this could have or would have been possible was the fact that everybody finally, to this day and age, acknowledges that history is nothing more than a group of lies agreed upon. I mean, we've been lied to our whole lives.
Forever.
Right? So, you know, and again, you can get down the rabbit hole of, you know, the banking cartel and their power, and, you know, that there's city states as London and Rome and Washington. They're all interconnected, and they basically control the whole monetary supply of the planet. And you know, if that is true, it only makes sense that they would not want anybody to have these kinds of resources. I mean, you know, J.D. Rockefeller made it very clear that he did not want free-thinking people. He wanted, you know, drones for his factories and
Sure, good little slaves, complacent.
Yeah, exactly, which was why he created the public school system, to, you know, teach you to follow a bell, follow rules, sit in a row, be a freaking drone, right, or a slave, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I figured I'd kind of touch on that, because a lot of those, you know, original healing modalities were using color and sound, and it was, again, you know, I mean, look at the Tibetan monks. Everything was about the gong and the bowls and the bells, and so there has to be more to that than meets the eye.
Oh yeah, yeah. And also, you know, you were talking about the cathedrals. All those cathedrals were based on sacred geometry. So the building itself was channeling energy and amplifying energy.
Exactly. And you're the first person that would verbally admit to me that you believe that to be true as well.
Oh, that's a well-proven fact.
Yeah. And the fact that they were wired. They were all wired with copper cables from the top to the bottom. So also kind of like what you're doing. Again, copper, not anything else. And, you know, and this is a great question. It was one that I was hoping to talk to you a little bit more about, the difference between a Faraday cage and what you're creating.
So Faraday cage and what I'm doing are two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Thank you.
Because a Faraday cage is meant to keep frequencies out. It grounds them out. And that's why the wires have to be close together and so forth. And what I'm doing is creating an energetic environment that combines the magnetism, the light, and the frequencies. And so you would be in a total unique energetic environment that you're not going to find anywhere else. I mean, the closest thing would be like the shamans of old or today would seek out what they call power spots, right?
Ley lines.
And a power spot is basically an upwelling of energy from a place. And it could be a crossing of ley lines, or it could be mineral deposits. You know, it can be many things, but it's a high energy spot. And so when you enter that, then the body does what it does, and it wants to harmonize and vibrate at that level. And when it becomes entrained, then your consciousness changes and you go into a whole different state of consciousness.
I'd just like to throw something else in there because that's something that relates to bees. A swarm of bees, when they're looking for a hive, actually will look for those upwellings of energy forms, and they will actually build their beehive around that if they can, because that's extra energy coming up into the hive. Just to let you know.
Well, but that's the same thing that the churches have all done too forever. You know, they'll go into a country and find, you know, a sacred space and then build their church on top of it.
It's we had a gentleman, I think Ken, you might have been on present. The gentleman, the German guy, I forget his name, very difficult to pronounce. He makes those energy pendants, and he talked about these deep earth energy wells that create the ley lines, or to some degree create the ley lines.
Yeah, he does the wires up underground. I do remember the show.
Right,
I can't remember his name.
He was a dowser. He also created these little, like if you had an energy line coming through your, say, middle of your bedroom, he would create a pendant that you put on the wall that would help bounce that out of the bedroom and away from you, so that you didn't pick up the negative energy, because there are positive and negative versions of this energy source.
Sure. The original guy that I knew of that was doing things like that, making pendants and using sacred geometric shapes, was a guy named Patrick Flanagan. And that was back in the 70s. And he was the first one that I knew of that came up with sacred geometric pendants. And it was, that changed my whole concept of that stuff too, because it was flat, right? But it was just there again, it was just the geometry that made it work.
And then you get into Oregon
boxes.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because that's a whole nother, like, you're collecting energy.
It's an energy accumulator, and it works on the principle of conductors and insulators and layers. Tinfoil hats. I like the copper pyramid hats myself. I don't know if you remember, there was the black guy on I think it was Sesame Street, and he had a copper pyramid hat.
I forgot about that, man. That was a weird show for our kids at that time and day. Yeah. It was really weird.
You know, but one time I had some friends that were very sensitive talking about Faraday cages and stuff like that. And they came to me and asked me to help them because they couldn't sleep very well. And so I ended up building a cage around their bed made out of wire, and then wired it into the ground in the electrical outlet. And
he just wants to play.
After I did that, they slept really well. And so I was just draining the electronic smog out of the air through the ground and returning it to the earth.
I know, Poe. I know you're excited. It's okay. It's okay. Shh. Shh. He's really stealing the show today. He's usually not like this. I think he feels your energy.
Looks like he's feeling your energy to me.
Yeah, well, yeah. You know, I get excited talking about this stuff. So let's talk about the Oregon. Have you ever played with any of that stuff?
No, I studied it and I understand how it works, but I've never like really played with it.
Yeah, I just wonder how, because I think what you're doing is something similar, because those are healing tools like yours. And if you've studied it, I'm sure that you probably can see the comparison to some degree.
Yeah, in a way. But there again, you know, I'm using outside stimulus to create this electronic magnetic environment.
All right, so where do we go from here? I mean, we've talked about the elements. Okay, let's talk about people's experiences, because I had an experience just touching it, and you were still working on it at that point in time. I could feel that it was connecting or collecting. Tell us more of other people, like the kid that you talk about when he goes in it. Have you had a lot of people experience it?
Yeah, but you know, how people experience energy or don't experience energy very much relates to consciousness, sensitivity, how much in touch they are with their bodies, things like that. And so, you know, people ask me, oh, well, you know, what's it going to be like? And I said, well, it's going to be different for everybody because everybody has their own reality and they're in their own place and chemically and electrically and all that stuff. So somebody that isn't very tuned in won't feel very much, if anything. That doesn't mean that there's not anything happening. It's just their perception because they're not used to feeling on that subtle of a level, you know. But as another example, I set up when I set up the dodecahedron in Hawaii, and there's a lady there, an older lady, and she has dementia problems and hearing problems. And I shined a color band on her that was just about as big as her head, and the ultraviolet band was right across here, and she could only sit there for about 10 minutes, and then she starts saying, "I'm feeling really funny. I've had enough." And so she got out. And so we talked, and I said, well, okay. I said, are you happy in your normal state of mind these days? And she said, no. And I said, is it something that a place that you want to stay? No. I said, well, then it's no surprise that you're feeling weird and funny and maybe uncomfortable because it's affecting your brain. And it's taking it to a whole different energetic level. But there was another lady, and she was older. She was like 80, but didn't have any of those problems, very energetic and purples. That was her home, was purples and ultraviolets and deep blues. And she got in the color band, and that same thing, the color band, the ultraviolet and the blue and purple were all right in here. She hung out there for half an hour. She wanted more, as much as she could get. But in those ranges, though, the frequency is so high, you have to be careful because you can burn your retina.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
you probably wouldn't want to put on sunglasses because you'd dull the effect of it.
yeah. Well, but she didn't have any problems. But you know, that's one of the things that I have to be aware of, and and factor in. Yeah. See. So the reds, as far as frequency, reds are the lowest wave. They're the longest wave, the quote slowest wave. And then as you move up the color band and the spectrum, and you get up into the purples and the ultraviolets, those are the fastest. And so a red is long and rolling like this, and the ultraviolets are like that. So there's so much more energy in there.
That's like when you're scuba diving. After the first 10 feet, you lose reds, and and right down the whole spectrum until you get down to, I think it's 40 feet maybe that the blues penetrate. It's been a minute since I did my scuba diving work, but yeah, that was always an interesting thing in my mind, was that these waves, both long and short, have different penetration levels in the aquatic ecosystem or into the water. So yeah, and so backing it up to people's experiences, and I think that that's really important to understand, is that there's a lot of people have a very low vibration, whether they've been programmed, deprogrammed, burned out by society, just generally negative people, are not going to have that any kind of real experience, because they're not ascended into a higher realm of consciousness. So I could totally see why you make that statement. And I wonder, I wonder if there was a way to actually measure the effect of this. I mean, you know about the aura machines, right? They take a picture of you and they show the colors,
Sure.
right? So I wonder if there was a way that the opposite could be done. Put the person in there, do their aura, and then hit them with the light and see what happens, because I'm sure it would change dramatically what was going on in their energy release.
Yeah. Well, that's taking those kinds of photos before and after shots. Yeah, it's part of the plan.
Nice. Yeah, dude, again, it's been an honor to have met you in such a difficult time and place in my realm, and to be there with your daughter Amber, who we hoped we're going to be able to jump on today, because she's another beautiful spirit. Her and Pauline connected like Jesus, like mother-daughter, almost to the first day that we were there. And so again, that you've just got this incredible journey ahead of you, that when the universe allows you to continue to really push forward in not only the completion of the whole build, but the ability to bring it out to the world and showcase it, because it's definitely a lot to this that cannot be completely denied at this point in time. Science is caught up with the education world. In other words, they can't just educate us and say, "Oh, this is bullshit. That's woo-woo." It's beyond that now. The Pandora's box is wide open. I mean, people talk about Reiki now like it's okay. Like before, that was witchcraft.
Well, yeah, chiropractic used to be the same way too. Acupuncture.
Yep.
I mean, I remember when the first films in the 50s came out of the Chinese doing operations without any anesthetic and just using acupuncture. And in this country, it's like, oh, that could never be. That's impossible. That's all doctored. That's BS. No, impossible. And look where we are today.
Dude, man, I don't know if you knew this, but when I first got to know Pauline, I had a back surgery in 2001. I had a discectomy. The doctor told me, he goes, "You're going to have 10 years, and I'm going to see you again, because I'm going to have to fix the one above and below it, because they're all going to start fusing together." And I got 20 years out of it, and slipped on some black ice in Connecticut and went down hard, like to the point where all I could do was like use my arms to get myself up into the into the car and then drive to the emergency room in New Milford Hospital and just basically open the door and just start waving my arms. And they finally came out, got me in a wheelchair, wheeled me in, nuked me on fucking drugs. After about 4 days of it, I was like, I can't take this anymore. It's not helping me. It's making me worse. And so I got off all of them. I went into a spare bedroom and just basically meditated and drank water for 3 days. And I got enough strength back in my body that I could actually stand and pretty much like drag my leg. And I went down to the Washington Depot to the spiritual center where I was reintroduced to Pauline. I'd met her a year prior at a cacao ceremony, a meditation. And so I came in there and Christy, the owner, was behind the counter. I said, you know, I'm in really tough shape. I can't do, you know, this friggin' medicine, this Western shit. I need Eastern medicine. And I know you guys have, you know, access to that because I've seen the case of Chinese herbs and, you know, the what's it called? Acupuncture, points of acupuncture points. I forget the name for it. And so, yeah, they brought me in there. Pauline started me first. She was doing like Reiki on my back. And dude, like it was just short of painful, agonizing how hot she could get my back with her power, her energy. She also did a lot of really deep tissue massage stuff that was like, unless you've had it, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about. I mean, literally the muscles that were so tight, like locked in to try to protect my spine. Mm-hmm. She would get in there and open them up. First she'd cook me, and then she'd get in there with her thumbs and you know, like break them apart, loosen them up. Then I would go in to see Jampa and he would be doing this acupuncture. Dude, within 2 weeks, I was back to normal. Within 3.5 weeks, I was 100%, if not better than I was prior to surgery. I mean, that's how powerful this stuff is. And
yeah.
And unfortunately, modern medicine here in the U.S., you know, still tries to poo-poo this stuff. But it's legit. I mean, there's no way you can say that it doesn't work. If you, and again, and Pauline would always say this, you have to have an open mind. If you truly believe this is going to heal you, it will.
Yeah, sure. Nothing more powerful than the mind, hardly.
Right. So that's the only downside of it is you have these people with these low vibrations, closed minds, not elevated spirituality. They're the ones that deny it because they can't connect to it. They can't wrap their head around it, let alone believe that this is something that's legit.
Yeah.
But I think you, at this point in time, if you had brought this out 20 years ago, you'd probably been, you know, burned alive at the stake, man.
It would have just been laughable, you know. But one of these days, you know, I also hope through this to help merge physics and metaphysics together.
Wow, that would be cool. So a whole nother level of quantum.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That would be beautiful. Yeah, because there is a lot to the metaphysical world. And again, most of it can't be described. So it's almost like, oh, well, that's a religion. Well, no, it's not a religion. It's real. It's just that it's not quantifiable at this point in time. We don't have the tools to do that yet.
Yeah, one of my favorite sayings is, we're always limited by the knowledge of our times.
Yes, and or the restrictions on it.
What's the difference, really?
Well, some are implemented and some are, you know, denied outright. So
Yes.
a little.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But another thing that most people don't think about in modern society in relation to their sensitivity to energy is there's so much electronic smog these days.
Yeah, oh God, yes.
And how many people go barefoot, right?
Nobody.
We're always insulated from the ground through rubber-soled shoes.
Yep.
And so our body builds up static electricity. And that totally, confuses the body.
Yeah.
And therefore the mind.
No, I'm a big proponent of grounding. I've told people, like, even in New England, I'm like, dude, go to the beach, get some sand, bring it down into your basement, put it on the concrete floor, take your fucking shoes off, and put your feet in the sand. It will work. It will help you.
Mhm.
And people either get it or they don't. And you can't force someone to do something that they're poo-pooing you or don't believe in. But you're right. I mean, ever since they came out with the rubber soles, and I forget when it was, but I think it was when they came out with tires. So like the late early 1900s, that they started attaching rubber to the bottom of our shoes. Prior to that, we were leather. So at least you had an insulator, but you still had some kind of grounding going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't insulated like vulcanized rubber for sure.
Right. Foot prisms. I love it. All right. So you've explained a couple of different experiences. Have you had anybody like come out of there just like, aha, like I feel like unbelievable? Or
Oh yeah, the lady I told you about that liked the sat in that purple, that ultraviolet band for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and she came out and she was just like, I feel so good, But the other lady, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and she's like, oh man, I just feel so weird, but because she had serious problems.
and
And
to probably exposing them to her.
yeah.
Neurology.
But I mean, when I got into the dodecahedron, for me, because I've done body work my whole life, and I'm really sensitive to energy. When I'm working on people, when they get a release, my body jumps, and I called it the shredder. I mean, when I went in there, I mean, it was phenomenally powerful for me. But that's it. It all depends on the person. Some people feel a little, some people feel a lot, some people don't feel anything. But it's that way with everything, right? And people's reactions. It works for some, but not for others.
So in the past, you've done healing work. Was it sound? Was it energy? Was it Reiki? What type of work were you doing, practicing?
It started out when I was 15. I started working on people doing massage work. Didn't know what I was doing. I had a friend that his back was killing him, and so I said, "Well, I've heard about massage. I don't know. I'll see. I'll try. I don't know. Totally don't know anything about it, but that's how I started. And then over the years, it gradually morphed into just doing energy work. And I went through all kinds of, but I don't have any professional training in anything except life. And, but, it boils down to being able to open up, set your brain aside, and let the energy flow through you. Because if you ask any therapist that's done work like that for any period of time, they say you do not use your own energy. And that's the danger about working on people that you're really close to, because you want to really help them. And so you use, it's really tempting and easy to use your own energy as well as channeling energy. But if you use your own energy, it'll deplete you. And then you work on somebody that is really needy and, kind of a psychic vampire, then they'll suck every bit out of you. So you have to be careful like that. But I mean, I've always liked to read and I've studied a lot. And so I read a lot of different techniques for massage. And then, I love Tibetan Buddhism. And so reading sacred books and studying, and then just my own work, doing artwork and stuff. it all kind of blended together. But I never thought I'd be able to combine my technical aspect, my artistic aspect, and my spiritual aspects all into, and my healing all into one project, which this is doing.
It's the universe hard at work, my friend, right? What was the worst experience you had in healing? Did you ever run into one of those vampires? I know Pauline had some pretty horrible stories about her.
I'd say the best illustration of that was I was teaching a class to some friends on energy work and protection, and especially women, and especially young women, very seldom do they consider psychic protection, or at least this is many years ago. And so I had a friend, beautiful young woman, and she came to me just like in tears one day, and she said, I got to talk to you. I said, what's going on? She said, there's this weird guy, and he keeps following me, and I can't get rid of him. And it seems like everywhere I go, he's there, and he keeps like getting closer and closer. So I said, all right. I said, what are you doing for protection? She said, what do you mean? And so I said, well, I said, then try this. I said, the next time you see him and you feel threatened, then stop and surround yourself first with white light, and then picture that with like mercury, a mercurical coating on it, because those kinds of energies do not like to see themselves. So do that and stay inside that, and you'll be safe. And then let me know what happens. So she called me about a week later, all excited. And I said, oh, calm down. Tell me what happened. She said, well, I was walking down the street, 4 lanes. And she said, that guy saw me, and he immediately started walking towards me. Didn't care about cars or anything, just like beeline. And so I said, okay, then what happened? She said, I remembered what you said, and I did that. And as soon as I got done visualizing that mercurical coating, he stopped, dead in his tracks, turned around, walked the other way, and I haven't seen him since.
There you go. I mean, Pauline did some extensive work on that. She worked with a group called the Power Path down in New Mexico. Jose and Lena, I forget their daughter's name, but that was one of the tricks she taught me, because I'm a very energy sensitive person, empath, whatever you want to call it, and I've always had trouble with that energy. Like, it wasn't probably 7 years ago that I realized that, when I got upset and frustrated and I was driving and I'd get, kind of like road rage, and all of a sudden I'd have all these idiots, doing this crazy shit, locking up their brakes in front of me, trying to cut me off. I was attracting that negative energy because I wasn't protecting myself. I didn't know how to protect myself, let alone, project it. So she taught me a couple of different techniques. One similar to what you're saying, which was the bubble, and there was another one that was basically even stronger, and it was kind of like the dodecahedron, but more so like points. So triangles with points, and all the points wherever the 3 points came together, or 2 points came together. No, it would be 6 points that came together. You put a diamond or a rose or something that means something to you. And I was traveling in a place that I probably shouldn't have been traveling, and I had things with me that I probably shouldn't have had with me. And I practiced it before I got involved or got on board, so to say. And sure shit, I had no issues. Nobody looked at me sideways. It was like I didn't exist. It was like I was a ghost. Nobody even saw me. So I understand the power of it. And yeah, to the audience out there, I mean, look into this stuff. Look into the Power Path. And there's all kinds of papers and courses, some online, some you can do in person. But there's a lot to this. And if you are a sensitive or energetic being, a high vibration being, you are going to be subject to these vampires, these predatory, low vibration people, because they want to steal your light. They see you. They see your energy. They feel your energy, and they want it.
They're attracted to it.
You're attracted to it like a freaking, metal on a magnet.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just physical beings either, you know. I mean, the universe, the multiverse is a big place, and what we see is so small of a part of it. But yeah, doing work, I've dislodged some very dark things out of people. They're not me, but the channeling the energy and seeing some amazing things.
Yeah, this realm that we're talking about is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
They say, oh, you're exercising demons. There's something to that shit, man. There's definitely something to that. And
yeah, thought forms, beings out there fed by thoughts on an energetic level, energetic beings.
Yep, that's for sure. Speaking of which, look at this little friggin' light fairy dancing on my face right now, right?
Yeah, well, there's one on your shirt too.
It's Pauline. Hi, sweetie, wherever you are. All right, so we're getting close to the part where I like to give the audience a chance to ask their questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to follow up in, something that we touched on that maybe you wanted to expand a little bit more and didn't get the chance to?
Well, I mean, we have a website, and it mostly deals with the prism, and my daughter and I created it for our submission to Burning Man, but we're going to be adding to it and populating it with more of the whole project as time goes on. So if you want to know more, you can look on there, although you've probably heard most of it now. But there's other explanations and information on the science aspect of energy and frequencies and different things like that.
So when do you hope to be on the road with it?
I don't know. I thought I would have been done quite a while ago. I've been working on it for years. And so it's just a matter of getting a good enough paying job at this point to save the money to finish it out. So it's hard to say. I thought I would be a lot further down the road at this point than I am.
So did you get the grant for this year's Burning Man?
Didn't apply for this year because just too much going on. And Burning Man has very stringent requirements. And so my daughter and I both agreed that it would be best just to not apply this year, but we're going to do it for sure next year.
Got you. So you're just going to stay focused this year, push it along as far as you can, and then apply next year, which forces you to have a deadline. Like you have to be done by that time. So then it gives you the money to do it, which makes sense.
Well, but they only give you money for materials. They don't give you any money for time. So you have to have enough money saved to be able to take the time to produce your installation.
Go figure, right?
And but yeah, there's so many applications to what I'm doing. One of the things, one of my theories is that the first prisms I made were vertical, and so the color band follows the orientation of the prism. If the prism's vertical, the color band will be vertical. If the prism's horizontal, the color band will be horizontal. And each of those has different applications for healing. And one of the things that I did with the very first one that I made, because it was pretty good size, when I finally got it to work, I would lay down or sit on the floor and then and so this is one of my theories, and then I'd sit below the red, and even though we don't see the near red, the far red, the infrared, the energy is still there. Those frequencies are still there, and our body electric responds to those. So start a person out like that, and then it takes about 30 or 40 minutes for it, with the circadian rhythm of the planet spinning on its axis, for the entire color band to go over your body. And so by doing that, starting with the red and going up to the ultraviolets, then my theory is that will, if the person is clean enough, open enough, focused and all that, it could have the effect of resetting our body electric to kind of factory settings and affecting the DNA. And also tying our energy into the cosmos, because that ties you into the spinning of the Earth on its axis, which is the circadian rhythm of our planet, which ties you into the energies of the whole universe.
When you were saying that, what came to my mind was, any spinning wheel, right? If you put the prism on a spinning wheel and was able to put it, a clear one, obviously, and focus it on the sun and spun it, you'd be getting all of that moving constantly. So you're instead of waiting for all the different spectrums to get to you, you would be getting them all at once.
Yeah, but one of the big points of what I was talking about is having those colors wash over your body in proper order of color and frequency, in harmony with the planet in the spinning of the axis.
Letting it
magnetically, energetically, that is phenomenally powerful.
There you go. Just letting nature do its thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a major aspect that I think that will help reset, because our bodies respond to that. And I mean, that's at the deepest level, instinctual, atomic, molecular, quantum level. And that's the thing. What I'm doing is that's the realm that I'm dealing with, is quantum, atomic, down to the minute particles of protons, electrons, and the magnetism. I mean, magnetism and light and geometry run the universe.
Absolutely.
And when nature finds something that works, it replicates.
Yeah, it does. Everything
as above, so below. I mean,
Yep.
hard to get away from. And also, another aspect, and this relates to soil, which is one, and water, which are two other of my major interests, is that the energy of the prism and what I'm doing will help the planet, the water, the animals, the plants, because it's all one. We're all the same thing. We're made out of the same stuff. The same rules guide and tie us all together. So if it affects us, it will affect the environment at all.
Very
and
true.
Where in nature can you be in one pure frequency of color and light? Maybe a sunset, maybe under an aspen grove, but where can you be in pure blue light? Or I mean, there's so many colors.
It's like chasing rainbows. You can't get them, right?
Yeah.
But you're projecting it, so you don't have to chase it because you're never going to catch up with it. All right. Well, let's get fired away into these questions. Ken, can you pop on and run the questions, please? The man behind the curtain. Where is he? Anyway, there was something I wanted to comment back here on meditation. Where are you? Some woman, Silly Lily, was talking to her. Cheryl. So, Cheryl, don't get wrapped up into what people say you have to do in meditation. Meditation can be walking. Meditation can be laying on your back. Meditation could be staring at a lake or watching the waves wash in over the shore. Meditation could be staring at a baby. Meditation could be just sitting in woods and listening to the sounds. So I tend to tell people to begin to get to the next level in meditation is don't necessarily focus on your breath. Focus on things that are you hear around you. It's easier that way to start to calm the mind. Meditation often talks about monkey mind, and monkey mind is the hardest thing, especially nowadays for us humans living in 2023. Like what we just talked about, brain fog, electrostatical energy that's screwing up all your bodily functions. That's also making your mind race. So to de-wire, to ground, to get into nature and just focus on the color of the light hitting the bush or the wall, or stuff like that is going to get you to that point where you can get your mind clear. And then once your mind is clear, there's a couple schools of thought. Professional meditators or people that teach meditation will tell you to just quiet your mind, to be nothing, to be zero. Well, the opposite effect of that is to spool your mind. And I often will let my mind spool, let it just go wherever the hell it wants, and don't restrict it, don't tie it, don't pull it back, just let it go. And some of the most profound thoughts I've ever had in my life have happened during that period of time. So maybe those will help you, and I guess you're talking about your daughter, but I wasn't really able to keep up with the conversation. But anyway, there's my 2 cents on that. And Ken, why don't you go ahead and take over, buddy?
Sorry about that, guys. My mouse wouldn't release the batteries, and then I couldn't get new batteries into the darn thing. One of those days.
Speaking of energy drains, man.
Oh, I know, right?
You suck your own batteries dry.
Cheryl's daughter has epileptic seizures up to 300 plus a day. Dripping water, electrical from the fridge can set her off, and she wanted to actually talk to you. She's very sensitive to vibrations, sound, physical vibrations, etc. Like even in a car, they have to put in gel memory foam, etc. for the road noise, etc. Have you dealt with anyone that's had those types of issues in the past?
Not to that degree, no.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you'd have to look at lifestyle, diet, exercise. I mean, what is a lifestyle like? How clean is the body? What are you doing to get grounded? To drain those energies out. What kind of thoughts do you have? I mean, there's so much to that. And people that are real sensitive, I mean, it's a hard place to be in this world today and be that sensitive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know she uses cannabis, and she's moved into the microgreens and sprouts, and it is helping her with what she is dealing with. But I'm just wondering if the light therapy could help her, and you never know until she actually steps into the machine. Is that about right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, but somebody that's that sensitive, I mean, one of the things that I'm very concerned about actually is what is the right is dosage, right? Because that's going to be different for everybody. And people that are real sensitive, um, if you put too much power in there and the body gets the message, oh, well, now we can cleanse. And most Americans, most people in the modern world are toxic. And so if they're very toxic and the body gets the message, all right, we can cleanse, and it dumps way more than the body can handle of toxins into the bloodstream, then they're going to go into a serious healing crisis.
But she's on a ketogenic diet. So I don't know if you're familiar with the
Yes.
ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
So I think she's a lot less toxic in that way than most people are.
Yeah.
So
But that's now. What was her diet like before? Because
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about, because the body has an unbelievable penchant and ability to store toxins at a cellular level everywhere. And that works until you get full. And once you get full, then you're in serious trouble,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're living in a toxic soup inside. And that's going to affect your brain, your body, all your organs, everything, because it's all one thing. And so maybe she's, doing that now, and that's good. But, you know, there's so many aspects that go into that.
Yeah. So Cheryl wanted to follow up. Yes, super sensitive to energy suggestions in hertz. She is in high ketosis. It wasn't great 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The diet.
yeah, and she says again, the diet wasn't great before.
Yeah.
And so that goes into cleansing. Like
Yeah, exactly.
you're going to have to do a cellular cleanse so that you're.
I've recently run across, there's a Dr. Tenon Institute. I don't know if you've ever heard about him, but he's a doctor and
Can you spell it, John? Can you spell it? Can you spell his name?
Tennen, I believe. And somebody suggested that I look into his stuff, and I did, and I really like it a lot. And one of the things that really impressed me, or several things, one of them was that he says that most of the people that come, and he's got an institute in Texas, that come to him with chronic diseases can be traced back to fillings and crowns and root canals and extractions. He says the only place in medicine that I know that the doctors believe it's okay to leave dead tissue in the body is dentistry. And he studied the electrical circuitry in the body and relates it to acupuncture. But he says the reason that the teeth are so important is because the body has a giant battery. Our muscles are a stacked battery. And so for instance, when you exercise, then you generate power, and that recharges your battery. But he said that the circuitry all goes through the teeth, and that regulates a lot of charging. But when you get teeth pulled or have root canals, then a lot of stuff is downline from that, organs and different things, muscles. And so that affects and this relates to her question about hertz. So he studied what cellular frequencies in hertz and in amplitude a healthy cell produced, and where it thrived, and then also what cells use, the hertz that they use to regenerate. And when you have that stuff in your mouth, then it decreases the voltage, and then that decreases the circulation to that whole system, and then your oxygen content goes down, and then you spiral down this rabbit hole. And so he developed this biotransducer to produce these specific frequencies and put them on specific areas of the teeth and recharge that system. And he says he has like 90+% success rate. And he says that, macular degeneration is one. He said, yeah, people come to me and he said, in 3 weeks, I can, either stabilize or make tremendous progress towards curing macular degeneration using this technology.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that gives you something to chase down, Cheryl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he also says there's 3 things that the body needs, and I totally agree. One is the right frequency of electricity, cleansing, and eating good food to give the body the tools that it needs to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do all 3 of those, unless you can really do it with your mind, then it probably won't happen.
And she says she's going to check that down. Sorry, go ahead, Leighton.
I said, don't forget clean water too. That's another real big issue at this point in time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're going to borrow, remineralize it after, so you're not stripping your body.
Yeah, no, I love water. It's a liquid crystal, and yeah, electrically charged water, Willard water, or structured water, huge in cleansing and health.
Yep.
And living water, spring water, just like living soil. I mean, it all boils down to the same stuff for everything that gives life on this planet.
Exactly right. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, so Stefan Burns had the full Faraday cage part, but he also had biofield harmonizer. So is that what the and I can't pronounce it, the hedron is basically set up to be?
In a way, but mostly it does that, but it sets the stage. It would set the stage for the body to heal itself through stimulating specific frequencies depending on the condition. So it will have the effect of a biofield harmonizer, but it's much more pointed. I mean, that's another thing, is that there's, that's one way of using that modality. But I also look at that modality just like I look at soil and plants, and that is, in soil, if you have all the nutrients there and they're well composted and everything you need for growth in a plant, then the plant goes through all the stages of growth and development. And as it does that, then the needs of those nutritional needs change along the way. So, but also you have to have the electrical part, you have to have the right magnetism to, get the cationic bond, which helps with the uptake of those nutrients, things like that. And so I look at the body as the same way. I mean, using specific focuses for therapies is one thing, but if you enter a general frequency spread with the right amplitude, then just like the plant, the body, in my opinion, will uptake what it needs for whatever you're working on, and the rest is just out there, and it doesn't affect it. So there's different ways of looking at it and approaching it. But yeah, the short answer to that question is yes, it will have that. It could have that effect. But there again, that depends on the person.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of people may, unless they have a lifestyle change, you know, they get in there, they'll feel good for a day or however, or whatever period of time, you know, a week, I don't know, depends on the person. And if they don't make any changes, then they'll be right back where they started.
Mhm. So this one's kind of out of left way, but what makes geometry sacred? Do we have an explanation?
Smiley.
Well, there's there's geometry and then there's sacred geometry. And in mathematics, there's what they call the 5 Platonic solids. And those are the building blocks that all of nature is built upon, is those geometric shapes. And those are the ones that are sacred geometry. And it's those geometric shapes that interact magnetically with the universe.
Mhm.
And they have different effects and stuff, just like the golden mean of a 4-sided pyramid. You know, that's another sacred geometric shape. And so, yeah, and that's what makes those shapes sacred, quote, is that they take it to a different, almost metaphysical level, energetically, magnetically, you know.
Mhm.
I don't know
Think,
if
think about it as the foundation of everything,
Yeah.
right? It's the foundation of everything. If you, and
yeah, of
these,
all physical matter.
yep, and these patterns repeat themselves over and over and over again.
Everywhere, you know, micro to macro.
Yep, you got it.
Yeah. Nature abhors a straight line and straight angles. She doesn't like it.
To a
So,
point.
yeah, Silly Lily had would closing your eyes make a difference, safer, and yet some light would penetrate. And we'll bring up this picture of you here. You've got the full face of light with your eyes closed. Does it matter if your eyes are open or closed?
It would, depending, but that picture is of the woman that I said could only stay in there for like 10 minutes. And as I said, the physical aspect of the light coming into the retina has phenomenal healing properties. And that physical light penetrates, though, just a few nanometers into our skin. But the electromagnetic frequency of the light goes all the way to the bone and interacts electrically with the bone and the muscles. Our bones are piezoelectric, you know, and that's what's putting out our energy field, our aura all the time.
Cool.
I would tend to agree with him that it's not going to be nearly as effective if you're not opening your eyes.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, just the physical aspect of I mean, if that wasn't the case, then color therapy, as people are practicing it, for the most part, would not work.
Mm-hmm. So then she had another question. Have you created smaller prisms that are available for us or for use? Sorry.
Well, I mean, I could. That's not an issue, but you can buy small prisms that, you know, if you, that's not you can get prisms out there, small prisms. I mean, I started out with one that was like this, you know, 6 inches long on a little base, and it turned horizontally. And it works, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the prism that I used, that I took, that my daughter took that picture of me holding the color band, was one that I found that at Goodwill, and it was a clock base, and it was made out of high lead glass, optical quality, you know, and it had a little bitty round spot indented that was all polished out where this little miniature clock fit in. And I saw it there, and I was like, oh man, that's a right angle triangle, optical quality glass. I threw the clock away, and I've been using it ever since. No, I'm more focused on my project and the effects of large and
Mhm.
manipulating that. Yeah,
Well,
if you just go on Amazon, I mean, there's all kinds of scientific companies out there that sell prisms.
well, and here's something that the boys were talking about how you could finance. I think perhaps maybe John could get funding from Burning Man if he was able, or it was usable at night. Example, pump white light laser into his prism. Um, it could get booked all around the U.S. for festivals, and by the daylight work on it for the science and do the white light laser for the money.
Well, I included, I addressed that issue, but instead of using laser light, um, I found a guy in San Francisco that had old school searchlights,
Oh, nice.
like from
Mm-hmm.
World War II, that on a clear night, they'll shine 5 miles into the air with a column of light, white light.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had many conversations with him, and I wanted to do the midnight rainbow. That was part of my presentation, and Burning Man wasn't interested in that.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, that fascinates me because I wanted to make a sock to contain the light and then bring it down to the same size and shape as the prism, so there was no ambient light escaping,
Mm-hmm.
and use those searchlights to shine in there. And if you've ever seen one of those, I mean, it's a palpable, physical, three-dimensional column of light.
Yeah.
So I see no reason why it wouldn't produce a color band the same way.
Well, there's a way that you could maybe finance the science side of it, with some entertainment and have fun out there as well.
Oh no, I agree, but those searchlights aren't cheap either,
True.
and you know uh, it has to have its own generator, which is gigantic because the electrical needs of those searchlights, the
Mm-hmm.
old ones or new ones, is phenomenal. I mean, so much energy.
Mm-hmm.
And a laser light is so small, right? I've never seen a laser light this big.
So there are some new highly advanced military grade searchlights that'll produce a beam this big, but you can open them up and make it like giant. So you can reduce it or spread it. So
Yeah,
check that out because they're reasonably cost effective and just as an experiment to see how it would work before you commit to one of those spotlights. Because you're right, moving those things around, the generators are no joke. It's an ancient technology, but I think there's new versions of it out there on the
yeah,
market.
but you still run into the same problems because all those lights, and the ones that you're talking about, the bulbs that they use are called xenon bulbs,
Okay.
and they are so hot they have water jackets around the
No,
connector.
these are like handheld. They're like flashlights.
Yeah,
I'll find them and then send it to you.
how big of a beam would that produce though?
Well,
About
when they open it up, it's like illuminates the whole friggin' building, and when they shoot it down, it goes really far. I'll find a link on it because I
yeah,
saw that. It's like, wow, this is really cool information. So I'll find a link on it and shoot it to you for sure.
well, this guy had um, searchlights like they used to light the space shuttle with, as an example. You
Mm.
know, I mean, that's the kind of intensity and size that I like. But here, send me,
Go big or stay home is what you're saying.
send me the info on that.
I will. And again, it was very affordable. So
Mhm.
nothing like that.
No,
And
I wish I had more money to do some of this stuff, but unfortunately, I spent all my savings getting this far, and so now I've got to go back to work, and that's
Mhm.
Nobody wants to hire a 74-year-old guy, you know.
I hear that, brother.
Mhm.
No, and we don't have the energy we used to either.
Yeah.
No, not quite as much.
Well, that's it for the questions. Other than I know that Cheryl, I'm going to hook you up with Cheryl on the back end because I'm sure she wants to talk to you more about her daughter Haley and what's going on with her to see if this could be a benefit to what's going on.
Sure.
Cool. Well, listen, I really appreciate all the time that you donated to us today, John. Thank you for coming on and sharing your message on this technology, which, you know, again, since the day I met you, I was like, wow, this is just amazing. And you know, I feel the struggle of trying to get to where you want to be and, you know, being forced to deal with a universal braking system, not allowing you just to friggin' plow forward. But we know you're going to keep the faith and hold the path, and you'll get there when you're supposed to, right? That's kind of the way it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Ken, as always, thank you for all the behind the scenes work that you put into this show and being there as our producer. Much love to all you guys, and thanks to the audience. I hope you enjoyed the show today. I think it was interesting, and Ken, I'll try to track down that guy and bring him back on here again. Faye's husband. I should have his contact somewhere because he was another interesting, you know, ties into all these things that we've been talking about: electric culture, you know, magnetic energy, et cetera, et cetera. So light energy. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what feeds us, right? Keeps us all alive is all the same stuff.
yep. Amen.
It's all one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, guys. John, do you have anything you would like to add before we end the show?
No, just I want to thank both of y'all for, you know, inviting me on the show, and I'm looking forward to, you know, helping out and stuff. And like I told you, Ken, you know, I've got my compost guy that I would like to get on here, and then he knows people that wrote the two books, Secrets of the Soil and The Secret Life of Plants, which are two
man, I love that book.
phenomenal books. And so
Love to have them. Definitely love to have them.
I told him he was going to watch tonight, and I told him that after when we're going to talk, and I told him I would hook him up with you guys.
Fantastic.
Thank you, John.
Thank you all.
You bet. Okay, guys, we're going to end the broadcast there. Peace out, everybody. And we'll see you on Wednesday with Andy Lopez. And then I know Luna does have a guest for Thursday. Remember, the Soil Matters is going to be taking a couple of weeks off over Christmas. We do have 2 more shows before then, so stay tuned for who's coming on. And with that, guys, love you all, and we will see you tomorrow on an update with the R&D Grow.
Thanks.